think we've got a lot to do, and we've got to do it quickly, because we owe it to children and people in this country to do better than we currently do. Having said that, we always judge the system by the things that go wrong. So if you do that, then you could always sort of be in a scenario where you think everything is bad. I think there's lots of great things going on. And you know, I don't think we should get too hung up on the system itself. I don't think it's a system. I think it's the people in the system. I think it's the culture in the system. Some of which I'll kind of pick up on some of the other remarks. We've got massive inconsistency in the services across the country. It's not good enough. We've got to do better. And the thing, there are people sitting in this audience who I've known for a very long time who have made a profound difference to children and people through relationships. I'm picking up on some of what Steph said in particular. And what we're very bad at, I was really interested to hear about Isaiah. And, you know, he sounded like someone to me who didn't get what he deserved and was going through some pretty difficult stuff, bouncing in and out of some real crisis in his life. I'm afraid the system at the moment just isn't geared up to go at the speed that Isaiah needed to go at. It goes at the speed the system needs to go at. And we've got to get better at getting alongside young people, realising that young people have huge resilience, huge strengths, as well as lots of things they need help with. And the system at the moment simply isn't geared up to do that. But when we get fantastic people, be they police officers, social workers, doctors, whatever, who are able to really get alongside young people and make a difference, it's incredibly powerful. So I think we've got a lot to do, actually. I went to, it was really great, I went to the Netherlands about 2 months ago to speak to the government there about what they were doing in children's services. I had a great day or two riding on a bike around Amsterdam. There are pictures, but you're not going to see them, I can't say. But on the second day, we toured a number of facilities for children and people. And when we were doing it, in every single children's institution in the Netherlands, on the management committee of the organisation, young people take the lead in running the organisation. So we went to an amazing centre in a place called Leiden that was doing really intensive work with young people who were in huge pain in their lives. And that project, although it had adults in it, was driven by children and young people. And the young people spent 2 hours with us talking about their services and what was happening for their community. And I don't think we've got the balance right in this country. We need to shift it rapidly. Thanks.
I tend to get involved in cases when things have gone catastrophically wrong. So I look from the bottom up and see it through a prism of disaster. There is optimism around this table, and I'd like to start off by commending the fact that I've come across a lot of professionals with a lot of backgrounds who are doing extremely good work. And I think we need to start off with that perspective in place, and also recognise that a lot of children are getting a lot of good support. The expression young people's been used, and I think that is an important link. However, there are failings, and I think the failings can boil down to a number of key points. First of all, as professionals, we all come at things from different perspectives, which means we bring our own professional baggage to bear on a problem. Put another way, we are problem rather than solution focused. And I think the other issue that is key is communication. I like the idea of one-stop children's services. I don't mean that in a social services sense. I mean you have the police, the psychology services, the medical, the education, the social services, the lawyers, all in one place. Cornwall does this with its benefits. You can go to a one-stop shop, and people will then know where to go. We will then hopefully break down the slightly isolationist perspectives that different professions have, and we'll be in a position, the expression silo mentality has already been used. It's a very good way of actually looking at these things. There's another perspective which I've seen in a couple of cases I've done for Dave recently, where the transition from children to adult services, for example, in the mental health capacity way, children are looked at with one category. You're 17 in 364 days. You then become 18 in one day, and you're no longer entitled to the mental health support you had before that. What? You know, it's things like that which are crying out for some joined up, linked thinking. I also think there's been a catastrophic underinvestment at every level with anything to do with children. We are very keen to spend money after the stable doors being shut, and I'm not going to make a political comment about that, but we have to be careful how we spend money, but we have to disown budget control. And I think that is one of the benefits of a one-stop system. We don't worry about whether the psychologist is being paid for out of the NHS trust fund or whether it's coming out of social services funds. It is paid from a common purse. At the end of the day, it is all public money. And why we squibble in a court environment as to whether I'm paying or the legal aid board is paying for something, sorry, legal aid agency these days, I don't get that. And I think we just need to break down these barriers. It is about integration, it's about comprehension, it's about breaking down barriers, it's about putting children first. At the end of the day, we need to be solution focused. And ironically, the people who often have the solutions are those who are not listening to. How often do I hear a child's voice in court other than through the Guardian? The answer is very, very infrequently. Yet we have some very powerful cases going through the Supreme Court saying we need to listen to children. There's a disconnect between what we're being told and what we're doing on the ground. I think we need to just bring together those 2 points and sew them together. Fractured is quite a big expression to use. There are things we can do to improve the system. Whether it's broken beyond repair, I'll leave to the real specialists, but coming in as I do, normally on the end of a parachute too late, it's a bit like American foreign policy. You come in, and you kick some shit around, and then you get out as quickly as you can. The difference is we actually need to stay on the ground and do the work that doesn't get done. There are other analogies that can be used about foreign policy, but I'll keep quiet at this stage. So to answer the first premise, yes, there's work to be done. There's a fractured system, but the positive here is the people. And the people are those who put their time and effort in, often under-resourced in every sense. And they need to be applauded. Without them, the system would not work. And it's through them the system can work better. Thank you.
Well, we know it's not working. I don't think there'd be anybody in this room that would say that is perfect, because it's not. And although some of us have made a lifetime, a career out of trying to get it right, and I for one feel totally frustrated that we're still not there. Maybe as Dave said, we might never get there, but that's too saddening to think about, because within that are children and young people. They're our future. Why wouldn't we be investing our money in getting it right for them? I think the whole budget thing is a real interesting tension that we all face, and having to choose between good quality provision for children and young people who are in desperate need versus prevention that's about changing a continuous cycle of problems and changing some of the endemic issues that are there is not a choice we should be having to make. I think Jojo's point about working at that preventative end and really getting that right, it's going to take a while to see the real difference, but it can make a tremendous difference. I think there are some good news stories. I mean, I for one, and I'm sure most people in this room would be able to say, we've seen young people who have achieved absolutely phenomenal things. There's an enormous amount of resilience that young people have. And I think the consistent factor I've seen with those young people is when there's been one individual at least who's really cared about them, who has made a real impact. And it can, for that professional, if it's a professional, if it's a foster parent, a teacher, a sexual health nurse, sometimes they don't know the impact that they've actually had on that child's life. But sometimes it's just about being listened to, being heard, being believed in. That's made that real difference. That's made for that child that they've gone on to do, as I say, amazing and phenomenal things. We had a young woman who baked the cake for, we had a Royal Garden party in celebration of our 150th anniversary. And I don't think anybody could have really understood what that really meant to her. It was a pinnacle of she'd been a traffic young person. She had gone through real hardship and difficulties. She'd eventually found herself in a 16+ service where somebody really started to believe in her, and she's gone on to do amazing things in her life. But she's even now can't believe what she's achieved, where actually she should be able to think she had a right to achieve that all along. So yeah, for me it's fractured, but there's some glimmers of hope in there. We have to learn from them.
Okay, we've got a few sort of opinions from